Hi everyone, welcome to the Land Down Under Hangout. We have a short read this month for June and it is Fina by Nino Cipri. This is a novella, nice and short, about a wormhole that opens up in an IKEA type shop. And two young people tasked to go through the wormhole and bring back a lost customer, except that the two people who are sent have just recently broken up. So what did everyone think? Mel, you want to start?
Sure. I thought it was, fun, interesting concept. I love the idea of the Littenwalds across creating these multiverses type thing going on and all of that. I love that concept and everything. I enjoyed generally the characters and what was going on with them, but also I felt that perhaps it was too short to sort of fully develop that, so that I felt really satisfied by the end, sort of thing. So, but other than that, I had a good time.
Sarah?
Yeah, look, good 3 stars. I think it had a lot of promise, and interestingly, when the author said they had written it for as a screenplay, that didn't surprise me, because there's certain parts within the action scenes that read fantastically. I was like, oh, I can totally see this translating the screen type thing. I think it was the character development for me it needed more work in terms of motivations, or terms of I don't know, I felt a little bit cheated within the premise of them having more fights and then all becoming allies. I don't know, that's always, a big part of sort of adventure stories. I loved but the premise of it opening it up in IKEA, I thought was really interesting, and the capitalism aspects were very funny. There's I'd be interested to see what Elizabeth thinks, because there was some Douglas Adams whimsical stuff that I sat there going, oh, I wonder what Elizabeth was thinking of this. I wonder how good or bad this is going down. But yeah, look, 3 stars. I think that I wanted a bit more on the characters. I think what it was is that I actually wanted to spend more time maybe with Jules, and I think this could have been a dual point of view, and I think that's the bit for me, is that I actually really liked them as a character, and I almost would have liked to have had a dual narrator perspective.
Kim?
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it as well, and I have to agree with everyone that the relationship would have been nicer to go further in, but it is a novella. But I guess that's like they made the characters so interesting that we wanted to know more about them, but there was no room to put it in a novella. So I guess that's the fault of the author being too good at the characters, that it made them so interesting that we wanted more, which we all know is a problem sometimes. It's like more, give me more. So yeah, I'll go into detail, but yeah, I did enjoy it. It was a fun adventure.
As for me, this was my second time through, so I read it back in about April of 2021. It was on the shortlist for the Hugo Award, best novella. So I read it during that period. I really loved this book. I found the sense of humor quite good, actually, quite sharp in places. And I thought that the relationship was actually quite well observed. Like, they're in a spot where the characters are still really raw from their breakup. And they would, forget that they were supposed to be mad at each other sometimes, and then they'd remember, and they know which buttons to press. But at the same time, the breakup is still new enough that they're kind of still in touch with what they liked about each other, which I enjoyed. And I thought the settings were quite distinct and evocative. And it was a good kind of it was quite actiony, which I can see in retrospect what you said, Sarah, about it being like a screenplay.
Should make a good movie.
It would, yeah.
I did think that.
So yeah, I was so there's a follow-up book afterwards. I was very disappointed to discover it wasn't actually about the same characters.
Yes.
Because I would have loved to have gone on more adventures with them. So I enjoyed it a lot, both times around.
Good to know that it survives a reread.
Yeah.
Speaking of the humour, the second page actually had me in stitches. I believe it specifically, I highlighted it because I was like, I gotta highlight that. It does not read as funny, I think, when you just read it by itself, though, unfortunately. It's part of the whole, but here was the habitat for the Pan-Asian appropriating white yoga instructor, complete with tatami mat and a statue of Shiva. And I was just like,
I love the description of all the rooms. It's so funny.
The rooms where it had some very astute observations there.
Oh gosh, yes.
And that was, definitely one of the things I liked most about it.
Yeah, no, it was, and a lot of that sort of stuff. But I suppose the only thing that was constantly jarring against me was the obviously American style work ethic aspect of it as well. And just not because it was bad for the story or anything, it worked well for the story, but because my Australian brain just kicks in constantly, like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And running my own business does not help this problem either. So not that I do a lot of it, but I'm well aware of some of these things, and so it's just sort of like,
get away with that here.
I definitely, I think that was the bit that I was the kind of ridiculousness to it. That's actually kind of what I wondered if you would butt up against Elizabeth, which was like that. Like, it's the absurdness of what they're being asked to do, and then nobody's quit. Like, but I like that in the world building. It's kind of like, well, we've set that up and we're running with it, which I thought was good.
I feel like the thing about absurdism that gets me is absurdism for the sake of absurdism, whereas this is like a astute, like, criticism of capitalism. So
it's part of the world building. Yeah,
it's more of a parody of what actually happens than anything else. So
no, and that was the thing. I thought it was like you said, it's observed to build the world so that you understand what the different motivations are of different people, which I thought was quite cool. I also was, and I know it's based on IKEA, but I kind of imagined this was like the cheaper, poorer IKEA cousin, because there was things in this where I was going, I know that IKEA is actually a really good place to work. Like, lots of people really enjoy working for them. They've got, that kind of aspect. But exactly what you said, Mel, about the American, like, you already get 2 weeks a year of leave because somehow that's enough. Kind of aspect to just bleed people till they're dead aspect. But so I enjoyed that. Sorry, I don't know if that's a cat trying to beat up the door. I did enjoy the rooms and everything. Sorry.
Yeah, no, the rooms were fabulous. In that beautiful tongue-in-cheek style of
Totally.
Going on back to the two leads and their breakup, I actually thought that was the single most realistic part about the whole story.
It was realistic.
I was so uncomfortable. I was just like, this is not where I want to be right now. And I was like, you're not enjoying the story? I'm like, excellent premise, very good writing of breakup.
Yeah. You're like, I'm not uncomfortable. I'm not making this face because I don't like it. I'm making this face because the author is really good at making this uncomfortable when it should be. I feel it. Feel it in my core.
In just that right kind of way too. And it was done, I thought, very nicely so that you couldn't tell at that earlier stages what had really happened, so that you just had that awful uncomfortableness, but without but this person's done something bad kind of feeling or anything on those lines, which is obviously the case anyway. But like it, so often when there's those sorts of breakups sort of scenes or previous relationships, there's this negativity directed towards that person and all of that, and yet this circumstance had a really nice balance of, yes, I don't want to actually be around you because we've broken up, but that doesn't mean I dislike you or I'm really cranky with you. It's just this beautiful balance that they struck with that, which made it possible for that reestablishing of the relationship later on. Well, not reestablishing the relationship, just, you know, finding a new equilibrium.
Yeah. You often see, I think, when you're in media, that a breakup is usually for a reason, a particular solid one reason, one thing that happened, whereas this is just like multiple things and it was just them as people. It was a much more believable reason to break up.
We need to normalize that. We need to normalize that. It is so hard, I find, talking to some people who need to break up and won't see it because something bad hasn't specifically happened. I'm like, it's okay if it just doesn't work.
Absolutely, which I thought was, you know, and there was that observation of not needing to see something through to its logical to a conclusion where you dislike or hate that person, and that just, I need that, the aspect, it's Ava, right, was the one of the leads, of just needing space. It wasn't that she disliked Jules, or, you know, Jules had cheated on them or anything like that. It was just, I need space because I still have feelings, but it's not working, and there are a whole lot of different aspects to it. And I thought that was really nice, so which was good.
I actually really liked Ava's self-awareness for a lot, like, of her own limitations, of her own needs, of setting boundaries, those sorts of things. I thought, I don't think that she was perfect by any means, but she was a level of self-awareness that I enjoyed.
I mean, Ava definitely wasn't perfect. She admits that she wasn't perfect, and that's one of the reasons why it didn't work, because she had issues. So they both had issues, and she had issues, which meant it wasn't going to work. And
I think that's the bit that I wanted kind of a bit more, and we didn't have room for it, possibly. There wasn't room for it, but I wanted more of that clash, you know, from a character, as you kind of go into, like, they're butting heads, and then that kind of coming out of that, because she knew herself, she was also limiting herself, which meant that she was kind of prejudging Jules, if that makes sense. And I felt like, you know, from a character development and then resolution point of view, I wanted more of that. And what I think, and I get why you feel a bit cheated with the sequel or what's set in the same world, is that she never had that discussion with Jules. She kind of had that realization on her own, and then has gone to seek Jules out to let them know that she does believe in them, that she's proud of them, or, you know, that, like, all those kind of, like, oh yeah, like, you know, that whole thing about it's not you, it's me, but it really is you. That's kind of what it wasn't. That, like, do you know what I mean? Like, I kind of thought that it was like, it's not you, it's me. It was kind of Ava to a T in this. So I think that's what I was looking for, was a bit more conflict, like, to get them a little bit more fighting, than to have that kind of epiphany moment. And she had that, but didn't have it with Jules, and that's where I felt a little bit
I mean, yes, but also I feel like that is
saying that you've read this twice, Elizabeth, so you might pull out moments that haven't stuck with me.
No. I was just thinking that, like, that the ending is in keeping with how the relationship has been portrayed, right? Like, there hasn't been some big thing that's happened that they've had conflict over. It's just like this accumulation of things, and then it isn't like this sudden epiphany necessarily for Ava. It kind of is, but kind of isn't as well. But
it kind of is, it kind of isn't. But I think where I felt that I wanted more of, I can tell you where I wanted a moment the moment that I wanted, and like maybe it was there and I missed it, but I maybe need to be a little bit more like in there, was the bit where Jules is holding off the hordes and then she's leaving with, help me pronounce it, the captain. Thank you. Leaving with the captain and Ava. Like I wanted a little moment that might have sparked that, what then happens, where she realized, where Ava has that kind of going, oh, Jules isn't, this is exactly where Jules needs to be in the right place. I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, that is what happens. Well, like not necessarily communicated to Jules necessarily.
I think that's it. I wanted a little moment. I wanted a little moment there.
But
I actually do.
Sorry, go ahead, Kim.
I actually do remember that point and thinking that there would be a moment, and that it was quite different for it not to be a moment, because that's what I expected from other media, that there is a moment at that point, at that high intensity moment, that there is a moment between characters, and there wasn't a moment between the characters, and that was very different. So that was quite refreshing in that way, that it wasn't what I expected it to happen at that moment.
But I also feel like Ava demonstrates that moment by leaving Jules there, by going, Jules can take care of this. They say they can take care of this. I'm going to believe them and go. Like that is the moment kind of thing. It's just not directly communicated.
The fact that
to
it's not
Jules.
spoken,
and maybe it's not directly communicated, or as I said, it's not necessarily maybe. And as I said, I've only read it the once. Elizabeth, you've read it twice. I feel that there's a nice slow dawning of realization as she's limping through the halls, but I don't know. I think I keep, because now I know it's a screenplay and I can see exactly what, like as if this was a treatment, I think about how I would, develop that treatment further and think about that scene. And maybe there isn't a moment and it's just Ava observing in the moment of Jules getting this, and then something that crosses that character's face of, okay, like, I don't know whether it's just, I just feel that there's something like a small observation that was kind of, and maybe I'll go back and read it, and it was there. I think maybe you're right.
I think part of it is
I was looking for it, and it wasn't as obvious, but maybe it was there in an observation that I just didn't quite see, or missed, because I was like, oh, okay, they're in the hallway already, and I didn't really realize.
I think part of that moment and that feeling of that thing, that part that you're talking about, there not being there for you, is that we are a little bit used to, from especially Hollywood, being spoon-fed things a little bit and having them spelt out very clearly. And so perhaps that's what you're looking for, even though maybe it was there, just not, it was more subtly done.
I feel too, like, so you've got that moment where you leave Jules behind, but then you also have the moment where she comes back to visit the captain in the hospital, and the captain says, there are infinite worlds, what are you going to choose? And I feel like that's the other end of the moment, if you know what I mean. So like you have this transition across that whole time.
I think because there's two parts to the moment, really. There's the first part, which is that Jules can handle themselves, and just while it may not be exactly how you choose to do things, they can handle themselves. But then there's also the Ava's part of the moment of realizing for themselves what they want to do, and that they don't have to be locked down into this smaller mindset that they've gotten. What's the word for it? Not trapped, because that's the wrong word, but they feel comfortable with this smaller life that they feel comfortable inside of, and that they perhaps could be doing more. And that's part of what Jules has been trying to communicate throughout their relationship, but Ava hasn't gotten on board with. And that doesn't mean that Ava and Jules had to get on board with this together and do it together. That's not the point. The point was that Ava could come to that realization for themselves. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. Thank you, Mel. Also, can we just pause a minute and say what a badass the captain is?
Oh, the captain.
Yeah, totally.
Absolutely.
Totally.
Best character in the story.
Yeah.
I was just
And
thinking
again,
this morning, I'm like, there are very few men in this story.
Yeah.
I'm like, I didn't even notice that until
there's
this
the
morning.
evil clone one. There's the evil clone.
Yeah. But they don't really have,
Drone
like,
clone.
they're just like the background. They're really the background.
Yeah.
The main characters, you've got the captain, Ava and Jules, you've got her boss, and yeah, they're all not male characters, and I didn't even realize.
There is a character who's fairly main and named, and that's Derek, but he's just not present.
Yeah.
Fucking Derek.
Oh yeah, Derek. Oh yeah.
The second book is about Derek.
Yes.
Really? I kind of like that. I don't know what, but I like. Yeah, okay. Yeah. I'm a big fan of taking the world and just sitting more stories, and I always love that. Yeah. I know that you want to know what happens, but I kind of like. And to be clear, I really loved that epilogue moment with the captain, kind of that conclusion piece. I thought that was really nice, and I liked that it was like that's her opening up her world of going, I'm about to do the wanderlust thing, and that's not the thing I thought I would do. And that was, and I liked that. I felt like in the same way that she'd had that conversation with the captain, there's infinite worlds and infinite possibilities. It's left to you've left to you to imagine the infinite worlds. And so I'm like, I know that you're a big thing. I want to know more about those characters. I kind of I like where it was, and I was that for me, because that was very satisfying. I thought that was really, really well done, and I do love it when there's that kind of this person's going, off an adventure, you're not going to see it. Like, do you remember that book we read? It wasn't a gin book. It was the one set in Mexico. Do you guys remember that? And it was so it had gods. Gods in the title.
Gods of Jade and Shadow.
That's it.
Yes, and you remember at the end that a heroine gets into a car with one of the gods, I think, or one of the spirits of the world, and it's like there's a road trip there, and I'm like, I want to know that story, but at the same time, that's just awesome. It's such a good
I agree.
I love it. I can imagine the adventure you're about to partake on.
In a lot of respects, this is a perfectly capsuled story in that you come in at a moment that is important, yes, but also is just on a timeline rather than like if you're really coming in and it was going to be about the relationship, you would have come in at like the breakup or something along those lines. Like this wouldn't have been the right time, I think. But it was more like it was this snapshot of what was going on around this other event. And yes, it helped their story arc in terms of what their personal choices and what they were doing and all of those sorts of things. But generally speaking, it was a nice little capsule of just this moment of change happening. And but at the same time, I'm also like, but what happened?
But hey, look, with a book like this, they may go back to write the story in another book because it's all open-ended.
Or
like they can leave it like that.
Other characters may run into them in other stories.
Exactly.
Yes, I love it when that happens. That's one of my favorite things of when there's like, oh, that's right. I
have to actually disagree with what Kim said earlier, where you said you would have liked to have the two perspectives. I actually would not.
That's what I said.
Oh, it was you, Sarah. Sorry. I would not actually want Jill's perspective in this. I think it worked really well in terms of the discovery of what was going on and how it was told in that respect. Because if you had dual perspectives, you would have it would have been a lot harder to sort of hide what was going on because you would have understood Jill's perspective a little bit sooner, I think. But
I think it's just an interesting thing to play around with from, it wouldn't have been a novella, but I think that also then they're not perfect and they're not in their treatment of Ava or their misunderstanding of what they like the whole of what the expectations of Ava were. So I think there could be a perspective where it's discovery for them both, which could have been interesting. That's all I'm saying is that but yeah, of course we can disagree with one another.
Hey, you never know.
The whole point of discourse.
The next one, they may write one with them both, and it might be Jill's perspective.
And I think it's also because I immediately liked Jules.
Yeah.
So I kind of wanted to be with them a little bit to see what their perspective, because what's their perspective in Ava? Because I got what Ava saw in Jules. I just wasn't quite sure what it was in the other way around, if that makes sense. because we
That's
came in
fair.
at the breakup.
Because we don't, yeah.
So
we don't see it.
yeah, and we came in at the breakup. We get all the anxiety, we get all the things. So I was like, okay, yeah. Anyway, so that
To be
was
fair,
kind of
my opinion on this might be coloured by the fact that I struggle to read trans / androgynous, whatever Jules identifies. I'm not good. Sorry, non-binary. That's the other one I was looking for. Perspectives a little bit, because it's cuts a little bit close to home when I read from their perspectives. I get really anxious, and so I might be coloured from that perspective in my choice of, in my opinion of that. I wouldn't want Jules' perspective because it might have made it even harder read for me.
Okay. Yeah, I get that. I think it's valid. My thoughts would be that in the hands of this particular writer, it would be very sensitive and very interesting. And
but as I've already I read earlier this year.
Another of their works.
No, another book with a trans lead, and
Light from Uncommon Stars.
Thank you, Light from Uncommon Stars. And the author is trans. It was handled very sensitively, but it is extremely heavy for me to read, because that's
quite a different case though in terms
it
of
is
tone.
A different case, but there is a lot of references from Ava's perspective to the discrimination that Jules had been experiencing. And if we'd been getting Jules' perspective, I would have been getting that more than I was already.
And that's fair. I think that makes a lot of sense about
for me. I know this is a very personal thing.
And and Ava did describe why Jules was a bit of a duck, like had to be a duck, like water off a duck's back kind of attitude, even though it did hurt them. So I think it was more trying to see how did these two
you wanted the relationship.
You wanted the relationship part. I was worried about the general community part.
About why is IKEA being this way? Yeah. Which is ironic for a Scandi-led company, just to say.
Oh, a Scandi company that's been overtaken by non-Scandi people, run by Americans, run by capitalists. Scandi design capitalist business.
To be fair, I don't know how nice it is to work for IKEA within the US versus.
Well, and that is a very good point. So, can we talk a bit more about the captain? Again, this is somebody I wanted to spend more time with them in that world, understand, and that's why I'm so glad I got
one
that.
Of the future books was the captain's perspective story,
or the first mate. We go back to meet the first mate and what that world, because it was so interesting. And the other thing I thought was cool, and I feel like we've seen it in something else, maybe, is the sand miniatures diagrams thing.
Yes, that felt very familiar, but I can't.
It felt really familiar, and I don't know why, because I just thought, people should do this more often. I feel like I've never seen Avatar.
Yeah.
Sarah.
I know, but I tried to go see it in 3D years ago, and I just couldn't get tickets.
Avatar.
No, I am talking about Avatar the movie.
Seriously?
Yeah, it's in the technology room when they're doing like all of the showing the stuff. It's
yes,
the sand thing.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And I've realized what I've remembered, which is this is a I don't know what you call this. This is a deep cut nerd thing. Myst. If anyone played Myst and Riven, Riven and all of those, they have a sand table in that. Sand table in that.
You're right, they do there too as well. But yeah, it's not an uncommon technology sort of thing.
And it reminded me of that Hugh Howey thing, which we want more of that world. Sand, I believe it's actually called Sand. So I was like, I think this is so cool. So I'm just getting to I guess technology in these types of worlds, and to me that it's just so, it was really well thought through and developed and explained. And it was one of those action sequences that I was just like, the author has spent a lot of time thinking about this and translating and working on this piece, and it came across really I was in that moment with them. I was watching that sand, I was feeling the vibrations. It was such a good action scene. anyway, it just got me thinking. This is off topic slightly, but it got me thinking about how they often use, not Mission Impossible, but that other Tom Cruise one where they stop the future before it started.
A Minority Report.
Thank you. And there's always like, we've got these things and we're going to move them around and wave our hands and things will happen and things will appear in front of us. And I just love that idea of going, it's still really, flat. I love this idea of something like sand, which you could imagine as, magnetic, and you could actually use it to represent. I just thought, we need more of that. That is awesome. What a great tool. Anyway, I loved it. It was very steampunk. It was really steampunk, and I just thought it's neat. So anyway, that's back on topic.
Well, actually, branching off that topic, I actually thought the author did a very good job with the different worlds, like in such a small space. I thought the worlds were just different enough, but not so different that it became laborious to sort of figure out each one or anything.
Yeah.
And but they felt alien, and some were scary, and it was just a nice balance of the different types of worlds that they moved through for such a short period.
Yeah, they were really good. And it was when they were writing about the Venus flytrap armchair, and the way they described the fibers or the hairs, I was like, there was something that rang bells in me that I'm going, the way they're describing that sounds so familiar. And of course they were describing like on those sensitive kind of flowers and stuff, like, so that was really cool. I really enjoyed that. So
it was a little depressing that, what's the name, Rosa had died, like
Ursula,
that's it, Ursula. And I was like, oh, okay, well,
it's quite early too. Like,
yeah, it's very early.
Yeah.
I was
okay, she's gone.
When my first read through, I was quite surprised.
Yeah.
So that they quite quickly accepted the idea of going and finding a replacement. I was like, I would have been rather morally challenged with this idea.
Yeah.
Also, you're in an alien world. You just found out that it exists, so.
I would have been going back and being like, sorry.
Yeah. And I liked, and the next world that got set up with the drones was also just fantastically horrifying in that kind of Black Mirror kind of way. It was really cool, and it was a lovely callback to the videos, which I was also like, I see you, nice there. I love it. I love a good callback.
Also too, like that kind sense, like, of the table flipping in a way, like, so in the plant world, Jules is the one who's not paying attention, and in the drone world, Ava's not paying attention. But they're kind of tuned to different things, like they're picking up on different signals. Like Ava's like, oh, those hairs, that does not look good.
See, and I find that fascinating because I did not feel that about the hairs, like, initially. I was just like, oh,
really?
look, sounds interesting. But it was the drone world that as soon as they walked in, she's looking around and going, oh, the food. I was like, something's wrong here. Something's wrong. I don't know what it is, but something's wrong. And so I was sort of like, I was more in the Jules area of just being like what I was aware of and worried about versus, so I thought that was fascinating.
I'm definitely Ava. Like, do you not know how Venus flytraps work?
Yeah, I think I've just seen too many like sci-fi horror style movies where plants eat people on alien worlds. So plants and alien worlds are generally.
And I'm also with Ava that when I haven't eaten, like it's real. I'm like.
I think my thing was is that it wasn't so much what was there. It was more because I was like, well, it can't be deadly straight away. My brain was just not flicked on for it yet. It was just like, oh, la 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 la, they're off going and looking. It might get turned bad at some point. Just don't know why, but yeah. And then as soon as they were in the drone world, I was just like, everywhere there's danger. What could it be?
But that's when the plant world is the most dangerous. People get off their ship on an alien planet surrounded by plants, and something that happens to them within the first 10 minutes.
Nice.
Someone's got pollen making them do strange things like 10 minutes after they get off that ship.
I see ya. I see it. Oh, nice. Nice. I also got big Abyss vibes from The Third World when the submarine was coming up. I don't know. I was like, it's the Abyss. Like,
the Abyss,
weird, and the ending, the really weird ending.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what it felt like. That is very true. I didn't even think of it at the time.
Yeah.
I always stuck too much in Alice in Wonderland with Alice being in the water and stuff.
Interesting.
Cool.
At the time, just because, like, obviously it was gone by the time the submarine was coming up. It was just more of that, like, what do I do with this situation? I'm stuck in water with no land in sight.
Yeah. But there was also a really nice moment.
I'm going to rewatch The Abyss now. Sorry.
No, I get it. I just thought that was a really nice moment. That kind of, you've gone from, you have your ups and downs, and then it gave them some time to kind of regroup and have a bit of a chat. And I always like those moments where you're giving characters some room to breathe and to kind of go, this is crazy, and how do we actually feel about it, kind of thing, which was cool.
So Elizabeth, did you go on and read the second one, or you haven't read it yet?
Haven't yet. I'm still waiting for it to come in the library.
Me too. I don't know if they're going to
just like we're waiting for Derek to come back to work.
Yeah, exactly.
There was one bit I highlighted. I'm wondering if anyone else highlighted this.
Library copy, so no.
Yeah.
Sticky notes.
I didn't mark it either.
Sorry, I have to remember how to do this. Oh yeah, on my Kindle. I really like this bit because I think this is well observed of family stuff, because I'm working on my stuff, which is about family dynamics. It says, my boss Trisha always said that we were a family. I should have realized she meant I'd have to put up with the constant bullshit. I was like,
yeah.
Yes. So Nino Cipri, thank you for explaining basically why I'm writing something about family dynamics and what we put up with in families that we wouldn't do elsewhere.
I must admit, most of that section is basically just me putting a note, highlighting something, and then writing rage, highlighting another thing, rage.
You remember to note it when it's making you angry.
Eventually I was like, okay, I need to stop doing that.
Ooh, sorry.
Sorry, I have a real problem with American style employment situations.
Oh, me too. We have a lot of problems with things in America, let's be honest.
Yeah, that's true. But the employment situation in particular is one that massively anyway.
Yeah.
Shall we wrap up then before we explode?
Start ranting. Yeah.
All right. Before we go, who's reading who's planning to read the second one?
I've got a hold on it, but I don't know if it's going to come in, so we'll see.
I probably will, to be honest, because I really like the worlds. So yeah.
I'm probably going to wait to hear from everybody else before I go ahead.
Okay. Before we go, why? Just out of curiosity.
I think because I've got a sheer number of things that I'm reading that I'm not like, oh my god, this was so much, especially because it's not continuing the same story. It doesn't make me like, oh my god, I must continue. If my library had it and I wasn't buying it, I'd probably be more likely to just get it and read it when I had a few minutes. But because it will require me to actually purchase it, which is of course okay, there's nothing wrong with that, I want to have a little bit more of a guarantee that it's worthwhile the time.
Yes, you've only got a limited amount of spots in your purchase and have not read list.
Yeah, there's that too. But I look, to be fair, if I was doing like a readathon and because I usually use novellas for readathons and stuff, and I was like, I want another book. This one is one that I know of that's out there, and I enjoyed the first one enough. I'd probably read it, but I'd buy it at that point in time, and so it would be an impulsive thing rather than I've got a plan to do so sort of situation.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That is useful information about this book too, I think.
Well, I think sometimes you want, it's really nice to have a book where you don't feel like you have to go on and keep reading from time to time. So I think that if you're someone who's like, I would love a novella that didn't turn into a series on the odd occasion, this might be a good one for you for that reason, because it's certainly can be read as a standalone without any problems whatsoever.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to keep going and divert, but that's actually how I feel about the Wayfarers series from Becky Chambers. Is you can read any of them standalone. You can actually go any particular order. They do reference each other, but it's the world that she's created, and there's the characters that inhabit different parts of it, and different parts of their world are referenced. But you can jump in at 4, you can jump in at 2, you can skip 3. Don't, because it's my favorite, but I'm just saying.
It's my least favorite.
Terrible.
It just goes to show you should read them all because they're amazing, but that's fine.
And everyone definitely has different favorites.
That is true.
Yeah.
And by the way, when I say it's my least favorite, for anybody else out watching that, I still gave it 4 stars.
Still high quality, yeah.
It is still high quality. It is still Becky Chambers. Anyway, wrapping up, what is our next mini read?
Our next mini read, I am not sure, but you could take us to our next main read, Mel.
Sure. Okay, so in 2 weeks' time, our next main read will be She Who Became the Sun, which is by Shelley Parker Chan, who is an Australian author. Yay, Australian. And it is a historical, slightly Chinese-based fiction fantasy story that is, from what I understand, sapphic with lesbians. Yay! So excellent for June too. So please join us then if you'd like to come along. We'd love to see you, and thank you very much for watching. Bye.